She was only 21 when she made the mistake, or maybe it was fate, of falling for someone she never should have. On the night of her graduation, amidst champagne glasses and promises of a fresh start, Anna found herself caught in a forbidden gaze. It was Michael, her best friend's father, a recently divorced millionaire CEO who never should have crossed her path like that. At 21, she gave herself to her best friend's father and lived a forbidden love. But what happened next? No one there could have ever imagined. If this story touches your heart, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and let us know in the comments, where are you listening from? Your support is what keeps this journey of emotions alive. The crystal chandeliers of the plaza shimmered like stardust above the ballroom, casting golden reflections over polished marble floors. Strings played softly in the background as champagne flutes clinked and laughter danced through the air like playful whispers. Anna Pierce stood near the edge of the crowd, her heart beating faster than she cared to admit. At 21, she had just graduated from NYU Law, and tonight was supposed to mark a new beginning, a celebration of long nights, endless readings, and dreams still fresh within her. Beside her, Rachel Bennett, her best friend since their first week at university, beamed with excitement. Dressed in a flowing emerald green gown that matched her confident spirit, Rachel had always been the center of attention. But tonight, Anna didn't envy the spotlight. She just wanted to breathe, to observe, to feel something real in the midst of all the performance. "God, I can't believe we made it," Rachel said, raising her glass in a toast only the two of them would understand. Anna smiled and clinked hers gently. "We survived the impossible." Their laughter mingled with the music, but Anna's attention wavered. Someone had caught her eye. Across the ballroom, near the grand arch of roses that framed the entrance, stood a man in a tailored black suit. He wasn't laughing or mingling like the others. His presence was still composed, yet it vibrated with an undeniable energy. He held a glass of whiskey in one hand, the other tucked casually into his pocket. His salt and pepper hair, the sharp lines of his jaw, the way his eyes scanned the room with quiet calculation. Michael Bennett. Anna's stomach tightened. She hadn't expected to see him here. She hadn't even thought about him until this moment. And yet, now that he stood only yards away, it felt as though the air around her had shifted. "Dad!" Rachel called, waving as she spotted him. "You came!" Michael crossed the ballroom with smooth, purposeful steps. Every eye turned, and every conversation dimmed just slightly. He had that kind of presence, effortless authority, the kind that didn't demand attention, but received it all the same. Anna swallowed hard. She wasn't prepared for this. "Couldn't miss your big night," Michael said as he embraced Rachel with warmth that was surprisingly gentle. His voice was deep, steady, textured like aged oak and cool rain. Then his eyes flicked toward Anna. Their gaze met. The world fell quiet. For a fraction of a second, maybe less, everything around them disappeared. No music, no voices. Just the silent electricity of two people seeing each other for the very first time, even if they'd technically met before. "Anna," he said with a subtle nod, "congratulations." His tone was courteous, but his eyes said something else, something unreadable, magnetic. Anna's breath caught, and for a heartbeat, she forgot how to speak. "Thank you, Mr. Bennett," she replied, her voice steadier than she felt. Rachel laughed, oblivious to the tension that bloomed in the air like smoke. "Come on, Dad. Don't be so formal. She's practically part of the family." Michael's lips curved, but not quite into a smile. Old habits. Anna lowered her gaze, but she could still feel his presence, dense, commanding, impossible to ignore. As Rachel pulled her father toward a group of professors for introductions, Anna stepped away, finding temporary refuge near the dessert table. She needed a moment to recover, to breathe. But the damage was done. She'd seen something in him tonight that hadn't been there before, or perhaps it had, and she was only now awake enough to notice. He wasn't just Rachel's father or a respected CEO. He was a man with grief tucked behind his eyes, with solitude in his shoulders, and with a gaze that stripped her down to something raw and unguarded. "You're being ridiculous," she told herself. "He's twice your age. He's your best friend's father. He's off limits in every way possible." And yet, when she looked up moments later and found his eyes on her again from across the room, the burn in her chest deepened. Throughout the evening, their paths crossed more than once, each encounter brief but loaded. A shared glance during a toast, a brush of his hand against hers as he passed her a napkin, a moment by the terrace when they both stepped outside for air and their silence felt louder than the music inside. Neither of them spoke more than necessary, but there was no mistaking the current between them. At one point, Anna stood near a floral arrangement pretending to admire it, when Michael approached and stood just inches beside her, close enough that she could feel the heat of his arm. "It's a beautiful evening," he said, not looking at her. She nodded. "It is." Another pause. Then his voice softer. "You've grown into an extraordinary woman." Her breath hitched. She turned to him, startled, not by the words, but by the way they settled in her chest like an echo she'd been waiting to hear. His eyes met hers again, and this time there was no mistaking what passed between them. Desire, curiosity, restraint hanging by a thread. "I should get back inside," she whispered, her voice trembling. He stepped back, letting the distance settle between them. "Of course." But as she walked away, Anna knew something inside her had shifted forever. A line had been crossed, not in action, but in intention. What was supposed to be a night of celebration had become the beginning of a silent storm. And somewhere deep inside, she already knew. This was just the beginning. The night had grown deeper, but the celebration showed no signs of slowing. Laughter floated through the ballroom like candle smoke, soft, bright, fleeting. Anna smiled politely as another classmate toasted the future, but her heart wasn't in it. Her fingers fidgeted with the delicate chain of her necklace as she listened to conversations that barely registered. No matter how hard she tried to stay present, her thoughts drifted back to the man standing across the room. Michael Bennett. He hadn't come near her again, not physically, but his presence clung to her like a second skin. Every time she glanced in his direction, he was already looking, or had just looked away, or stood so still it felt like gravity bent toward him. And every time their eyes met, even for the briefest second, it was like stepping too close to a flame. Anna pressed a hand to her stomach, trying to quiet the fluttering inside her. It wasn't supposed to feel like this, not here, not with him. "Anna," someone called. She blinked, forcing herself to turn. One of her classmates was waving her over to a group near the bar. She smiled, nodded and walked toward them, but even as she laughed at their jokes and clinked her glass with theirs, she felt it, that unmistakable pull, that awareness in the back of her neck that told her she was being watched. She dared to glance back. Michael stood in quiet conversation with an older partner from the firm. His expression was composed, even distracted, but his gaze flicked to her through the crowd like a secret sent only to her. She quickly looked away, heat rising in her cheeks. "Are you okay?" Rachel asked, suddenly beside her with a glass of rosé in hand. "You look flushed." "I'm fine," Anna lied. "Just a little warm. These lights are intense." Rachel laughed and nodded toward the ceiling. "They always overdo it here. You'd think they were lighting a movie, not a party." Anna forced a chuckle, grateful that Rachel's attention was easily pulled away by someone else calling her name. As Rachel left, Anna exhaled shakily and stepped away from the group, needing air. She moved toward the arched balcony doors and slipped outside. The terrace was quieter. Cool night air met her skin, grounding her. She leaned on the marble railing, staring out at the Manhattan skyline. Golden lights, endless windows, a city always awake. She barely registered the sound of the door opening behind her, but she felt him. Michael. He didn't speak, didn't walk all the way over. He simply stood there a few feet away as if respecting an invisible boundary neither of them understood. Anna could hear the distant music inside, muffled and meaningless compared to the thundering silence between them. "Beautiful view," he said after a moment. She turned her head slightly, enough to see his profile under the soft glow of the terrace light. "It is." Another pause, the kind that stretches thin under the weight of unsaid things. "I didn't think you'd be here," she said quietly. "I almost wasn't. But you came anyway." He looked at her now, and the intensity in his gaze felt like it stripped her bare. "I wasn't sure I'd see you." Anna's breath caught. Silence again. Not awkward, just tight, charged, like something sacred was pressing against both of them, testing the limits. "I should go back in," she murmured, unsure whether she meant it. Michael nodded, stepping aside to let her pass. Their shoulders nearly brushed, and that single moment of almost touch sent a ripple through her chest. Back inside, the room felt too loud, too bright. Anna moved through the party like a ghost, hearing voices but no longer absorbing them. Her mind echoed with Michael's voice, his look, that moment on the terrace. This wasn't just attraction, it was something else, something dangerous. She made her way to a quiet corner near the floral display by the grand piano. Her fingers traced a rose petal absently, her thoughts spinning. Lost in thought? The voice startled her. She turned to see Daniel, one of her classmates. Sweet, funny, harmless Daniel. "Just thinking about how weird it is that it's all over," she lied. He nodded, sipping his drink. "Yeah, bittersweet, huh?" She nodded along, grateful when someone called Daniel away moments later. She needed the solitude, but even more than that, she needed control. And tonight, it was slipping. Meanwhile, across the room, Michael stood by the bar, glass untouched in his hand. He wasn't hearing the conversation around him anymore. Not fully. His mind was on Anna. He remembered her as a teenager, shy, bookish, always in Rachel's shadow. But tonight, she wasn't that girl anymore. She was a woman, poised, sharp, radiant, and completely off limits. He hadn't planned on speaking to her more than courtesy demanded, but when he saw her under those lights, laughing with Rachel, then standing alone on the balcony, he couldn't help himself. He'd made excuses to walk past her, linger near her, catch glimpses when no one else was watching. And she'd felt it too. He saw it in the way she looked away, then back again. A silent invitation wrapped in fear. Michael closed his eyes and exhaled slowly. This was madness. She was 21, his daughter's best friend, his employee soon. But God help him, he hadn't felt this alive in years. As the night wound down and the last toasts were raised, Michael and Anna didn't speak again. But their eyes met one final time. Across the room, across every unspoken word. And that moment, it held everything they hadn't dared to say. A whisper of something beginning. A silent promise neither of them could name. A desire neither would be able to ignore for long. The invitation came through a message that felt as innocent as a breeze. "Come to Maine with me this weekend," Rachel had written. "Dad's house by the coast, just us. You need a break." Anna stared at the screen longer than she should have. The idea of a quiet weekend away after weeks of emotional noise was tempting. The ocean, the calm, the chance to reset, but she knew Michael would be there. And that changed everything. She typed and deleted her reply 3 times before finally writing, "I'll come." The train ride to Kennebunkport felt like a slow unraveling. Anna watched the scenery shift from steel and glass to green hills and coastal roads. Her heart beat with equal parts anticipation and warning. When they arrived at the station, Rachel was buzzing with energy. "You're going to love it. It's like Malibu, but quieter. More timeless." They drove in a sleek black car up winding roads until the trees parted and the sea appeared. Vast, silver blue, endless. The house stood just beyond the curve of a cliff, white and graceful, with wraparound porches and driftwood accents. It was elegance without pretense. Michael was waiting on the front steps. He wore a soft grey sweater, sleeves pushed to his forearms, and jeans. His stance was casual, hands in his pockets. But when Anna stepped out of the car, his eyes locked on her, and for a second, it was as if the wind itself had stopped to listen. "Welcome," he said, voice warm, measured. "Glad you could join us." Anna nodded, swallowing the rush of heat in her chest. "Thank you for having me." They entered the house with luggage and laughter, Rachel pulling Anna toward her old bedroom upstairs like they were teenagers again. But Anna's mind was still at the front door, still tangled in the way Michael had looked at her. Dinner that night was easy. Rachel filled the room with stories and wine, while Michael listened, occasionally offering dry comments that made them both laugh. He didn't direct anything at Anna specifically, but she could feel it, his awareness of her, his stillness when she spoke, the way his eyes followed her hand when she reached for her glass. After the meal, Rachel excused herself to make a video call in her room. Anna offered to help clear the table, and for the first time she and Michael were alone in the soft golden glow of the kitchen. He stood at the sink, sleeves rolled higher now, rinsing the plates. Anna handed him the cutlery. "I'm surprised you're not making us do all the work." He smiled faintly. "Retired from authority, at least on weekends." She smiled, but her hands were slightly trembling. Michael glanced sideways at her. "Are you comfortable here?" The question lingered longer than it should have. "Yes," she said quietly, "though I wasn't sure if I should come." He nodded once. "I wasn't sure if I should stay." Their eyes met, and neither looked away. The silence was thick, filled with something ancient and new all at once. Anna's fingers grazed his as she passed him a plate, and the jolt it sent through her body nearly made her drop it. She stepped back. I'm going to get some air." "Good idea," he replied softly. She walked out to the porch, heart pounding. The sea stretched into the horizon like a secret. The air was salty, damp, laced with pine. The sound of waves breaking against rocks below was soothing, but her insides were anything but calm. She sat on the wooden bench and hugged her knees, trying to find herself again. Moments later, the door creaked open. Footsteps. Michael. He didn't sit, just leaned on the porch rail beside her, facing the ocean. "I've had this house for 12 years, he said. "Came here a lot when Rachel was young, back when her mother and I were trying to still be something." Anna didn't reply. The vulnerability in his voice made her ache. "I used to think the sea could fix anything, that its silence was some kind of answer." She turned to look at him. "And is it?" His eyes met hers. "Sometimes." Another pause. Another silence too full to be empty. "You've grown," he said after a while. "I don't mean just professionally. You've changed. There's something in you now that's—" He stopped, searching for the word. "Anchored. Like you know who you are." Anna felt her breath catch. "I'm trying," she whispered. Michael's gaze lingered. "Don't let anyone undo that." He walked away then, slowly, back into the house, leaving her on the porch with the sound of waves and a heart that no longer felt entirely her own. The following day was filled with casual beach walks, breakfasts on the deck, and long afternoon naps in hammocks swaying under pine trees. Rachel's laughter rang through the halls, but Anna moved through the house with a heightened awareness of everything. Where Michael sat, when he entered a room, how he stood beside her in the kitchen, passing her a mug of coffee with fingers that brushed hers deliberately or accidentally. She couldn't tell anymore. That evening, Anna helped set the table. Michael reached over her shoulder to grab a fork and paused, close enough that she could feel the heat of him behind her. The moment stretched, then passed. But the memory lingered. At night, she couldn't sleep. The bed was comfortable, but her skin felt too alive. Every cell in her body remembered his nearness. Every breath was shallow. She got up and padded quietly to the balcony. Michael was there, sitting in a chair, wrapped in a navy robe, looking at the stars. He looked over his shoulder when he heard her. "Couldn't sleep?" She shook her head, crossing her arms over her chest. "Too much on my mind." He didn't ask. He didn't need to. "Sit," he said gently. She did, close enough to feel him breathing. The sky above them was filled with stars. A silver trail of clouds drifted slowly by. Neither of them spoke. There were no words left that could make what they felt any simpler, and none that could stop what was coming. The days in Maine unfolded like pages of a quiet, slow-burning novel. Mornings came wrapped in mist and the scent of fresh coffee. The sun rose gently over the water, casting golden streaks across the wooden floors of the beach house. But beneath the calm, something restless stirred, unspoken, untamed. Anna woke each day to the sound of waves and the distant murmur of Rachel's voice echoing through the halls. She moved through the kitchen in soft pajamas, hair tied up in a lazy bun, trying to pretend everything was still under control. Michael was always there, not intrusive, not obvious, but present in a way that consumed her senses. She would find him barefoot on the deck, sipping black coffee, eyes lost in the horizon, or in the kitchen, sleeves rolled up, flipping pancakes with a quiet grace that made her stomach twist. Every interaction was ordinary, on the surface. "Pass me the salt," he asked one morning, reaching as she turned. Their fingers touched just barely, just enough. Anna froze. Their eyes met. For a heartbeat too long. Then she nodded, clearing her throat. "Here." He took it without a word, but his knuckles grazed hers again as he did. And that was all it took. Each moment like this, too brief to be deliberate, too charged to be ignored, only fed the tension simmering between them. Rachel, ever light-hearted and warm, remained blissfully unaware. She filled the house with playlists from their college days, insisted on baking cookies at midnight, and dragged Anna out for sunset walks by the shore. "We needed this," Rachel said one evening, as they stood barefoot in the sand, the tide brushing their toes. "You've been so tense lately, you never say it, but I know." Anna offered a small smile. "You know me too well." Rachel linked their arms. "You're going to be amazing at the firm, you know? My dad doesn't hand opportunities like that to just anyone. He really sees something in you." Anna's heart clenched. The words felt like a weight and a wound at once. That night, back at the house, Anna stood in the hallway brushing her hair when Michael walked past her room. He paused. "Couldn't sleep again?" he asked, voice low. She shook her head, not trusting herself to speak. "You want tea?" She hesitated, then nodded. Downstairs, the kitchen was dimly lit. The house was silent except for the gentle tick of the old clock and the wind rattling the windows. Michael poured hot water into 2 mugs, added honey to one, lemon to the other, without needing to ask which was hers. He slid it toward her. Their hands brushed again. This time neither of them pulled away. "I feel like I'm losing my mind," Anna whispered, fingers tightening around the ceramic. Michael looked at her slowly, his expression unreadable. "You're not." "But this isn't—" She paused, searching for the right word. "Safe." "No," he said, voice rougher than before. "It's not." She looked at him, really looked, at the tension in his jaw, the quiet in his eyes, the war being fought behind them. "Then why are we still here?" she asked, almost to herself. He didn't answer. He didn't have to. The next morning, the air between them felt even heavier, charged. She noticed the way his fingers lingered when handing her a fork, the way his gaze dropped to her mouth when she smiled at something Rachel said. At one point, Anna bent down to grab a book that had fallen under the couch, and as she rose, she collided with Michael, who had been passing behind her. "Sorry," she breathed. Their bodies pressed too close in the narrow space. His hands steadied her. His touch burned through her shirt. "It's okay," he said, voice quiet, too quiet. But it wasn't. Nothing was okay. That afternoon, Rachel went kayaking, insisting Anna take time to nap or read. She didn't question when Anna declined. Alone in the house, Anna tried to focus on a novel, but her eyes blurred every time she reached the same sentence. She heard Michael in the kitchen, then the living room, then silence. The air was too still, too loud with possibilities. She stood, walked downstairs, stopped when she saw him standing by the open window, a glass of wine in hand. He turned when he felt her behind him. Neither spoke. She crossed the room slowly, barefoot on the wooden floor. The distance between them vanished in measured, dangerous seconds. "I can't keep doing this," she said. Her voice trembled, but not from fear. Michael set the glass down. "I've been telling myself the same thing. Then why can't we stop?" "Because I feel you every second," he said, "even when I look away, even when I pretend not to notice. You're still there. In the air, in my pulse." Anna closed her eyes, pain blooming in her chest. This shouldn't be happening. But it is. They stood inches apart. The sunlight cast a warm glow through the window, bathing them in gold, like a moment frozen between right and wrong. He reached out hesitantly, brushing a strand of hair from her cheek. His touch was feather-light, reverent. Anna's breath hitched. Her eyes opened. They didn't kiss. They didn't need to. The fire was already lit, spreading slow and steady through every glance, every near touch, every second that dared to pass without surrender. And in that space, between want and restraint, between silence and permission, they remained. For now. The night fell softly over the Maine coast, draping the beach house in a velvety stillness. The sea murmured in the distance, its rhythm slower now, calmer, like it too was waiting. Dinner had been simple: grilled vegetables, roasted salmon, a bottle of white wine half finished. Rachel had yawned halfway through dessert and excused herself early, blaming the salt air for her sudden exhaustion. "Don't wait up," she said with a wink. "I'm sleeping like a rock tonight." And just like that, they were alone. Anna stood at the sink, sleeves rolled, hair tied back, a sponge in her hand. The dishes clinked softly as she rinsed one plate after another. The smell of lemon soap mixed with something warmer, something that came from the man standing just inches beside her. Michael dried each plate she passed to him in silence. His movements were steady, almost mechanical. But every brush of their fingers felt deliberate, loaded, dangerous. Outside, the wind rattled faintly against the windows. Inside, the silence thickened. "Did she seem off to you?" Anna asked, just to say something. Michael shook his head. "She's just relaxed. I don't think she's had a real break since graduation." Anna nodded, rinsing a glass. "I forgot what silence sounded like." Michael glanced at her. "Then listen to it." She stopped, set the glass aside. Their eyes met. The silence now wasn't peaceful. It was heavy, full of static and breath and the memory of everything they hadn't said. Anna turned back to the sink, but her pulse was no longer steady. As she reached for the last plate, Michael's hand moved at the same time. Their fingers met again, but this time neither of them pulled away. Her breath caught. The plate slipped back into the water with a soft splash. She looked up. He was already looking at her, and suddenly, the space between them, days of stolen glances, near touches, unsaid things, collapsed. Michael stepped forward. His hand came up, hesitant but sure, tracing a slow path along her jaw, tilting her face toward his. Anna's lips parted, but no sound came. Their eyes locked, and in that suspended moment, there were no rules, no names, no titles, just heat, breath, and inevitability. The kiss came fast, fierce. There was no grace in it, only fire. His mouth crushed against hers with a hunger that had waited too long. She answered with the same urgency, fingers tangling in the collar of his shirt, pulling him closer as if she could fuse their bodies together. The sponge fell. The water dripped unnoticed onto the floor. His hands were on her waist, then her back, then in her hair. Every inch of space between them vanished. Their mouths moved like they'd done this 1,000 times in dreams they'd both denied. Anna gasped when his hand slid up her spine, and he kissed the sound right out of her. They stumbled against the counter, lost in the chaos of release. All the restraint from the past few days, the stolen glances, the burning silences, the broken nights of sleep, now melted into this one untamed moment. But then, Michael pulled away, just slightly, just enough. Their foreheads rested together, both of them breathless, eyes closed, hearts thudding like war drums. Anna's chest heaved, her lips tingled, her hands were still clinging to the front of his shirt. Neither of them spoke. He stepped back slowly as if tearing himself from a magnet. The space between them felt colder now. Empty. "I'm sorry," he said hoarsely, but it didn't sound like regret. Anna looked at him, really looked. His eyes were wild, conflicted, raw. "Don't be," she whispered. "I kissed you too." Michael turned away, running a hand through his hair. "We can't." "I know. This isn't just reckless. It's Rachel." "I know," she said again, softer this time. And yet, her lips still buzzed with the memory of his. Her body still ached where his hands had been. "I should go upstairs," she murmured, though her feet didn't move. He didn't stop her, but he didn't look away either. Anna stepped back 1 inch at a time, turned, walked toward the hallway. She didn't look over her shoulder, but she felt his eyes on her until she disappeared around the corner. Inside the guest room, she closed the door, pressed her back against it, and let out a shaky breath. She touched her lips with trembling fingers. It had happened, and it would happen again. She knew it the way the tide knew the moon, the way fire knew fuel, the way silence always knew when it was about to be broken. Because what lived between them now wasn't just desire, it was collision, and it was far from over. The rhythm of Manhattan returned with a vengeance. Honking horns, crowded sidewalks, the sharp perfume of ambition that lingered in every lobby and elevator. After the softness of Maine, the city felt louder, colder. But Anna moved through it with practiced ease, heels clicking across marble, coffee in hand, hair pulled back in a low bun that screamed control. She hadn't seen Michael since the kiss, not even a text. Rachel, on the other hand, was her usual buoyant self, chatting about starting at her father's firm next week, buying new suits, and stressing over whether to get a black or burgundy briefcase. Anna smiled, nodded, replied when expected, but inside she was unsettled. How do you go back to pretending nothing happened, when everything did? The answer came 2 days later, in the form of an envelope. It was hand-delivered. Cream-colored, thick paper, her name handwritten in a precise, familiar script. Inside, a formal offer from Bennett, Strauss & Cole, addressed to Miss Anna Pierce, inviting her to join the firm as a junior associate, beginning the following Monday. No mention of Rachel, no personal note, no signature from Michael, only the official HR department seal, but she felt him in every word. Anna sat on the edge of her bed, the letter trembling slightly in her hands. Her heart beat erratically. She read it again. She wasn't stupid. She knew what this was. On the surface, it was a generous professional opportunity, a reward for her stellar academic record, her internship recommendations, her flawless final thesis. But underneath, it was a door. A carefully carved, impeccably crafted door into a world she wasn't sure she could walk into without losing herself. That night, her phone lit up. A message, one she'd half hoped for and half dreaded. Michael, I thought you deserved the offer. And yes, Rachel will be starting too. Whatever your decision is, I'll respect it. I just didn't want you to think I forgot. Anna stared at the screen, her chest tightening. She typed slowly. Anna, you didn't forget. I felt that. There was no reply. But the silence between them had always spoken more than words. The next morning, she met Rachel for coffee at a little spot near Bryant Park. I got it too, Rachel said, waving her own envelope. We're going to be co-workers. Anna smiled, her throat dry. Crazy how things turn out. Rachel leaned in. You're taking it, right? I mean, God, how perfect would it be? You and me, working under my dad? It's literally everything we dreamed of in our second year. Anna hesitated. I'm thinking about it. Rachel gave her a playful nudge. Come on, Anna. You've always been the brave one. Brave. That word tasted different now. That evening, Anna stood by her window, looking down at the city lights. Her fingers grazed the edge of the offer letter again. To say no would be to protect herself. It would be smart, safe. But to say yes meant seeing him again, working near him, pretending every day that her heart wasn't already tangled in something forbidden. And still, something inside her whispered, you already decided. Monday came. She walked through the doors of Bennett, Strauss & Cole with a fresh suit and nerves like broken glass under skin. The building was a temple of power, glass, steel, and silence. Rachel bounced at her side like sunshine in human form. This is insane. Our offices are on the same floor. You'll love it. Everyone's terrified of my dad, but honestly, he's not as scary as he looks. Anna gave a tight smile. If only Rachel knew. The elevator doors opened. A receptionist greeted them. And then, he was there. Michael stood at the end of the corridor, speaking to a senior partner. He wore a navy suit, crisp white shirt, no tie. His presence was magnetic, unshakable. When his eyes met Anna's, something in him flickered, but only for a second. Anna, he said with a professional nod as she approached. Welcome. His voice was steady, no hint of anything inappropriate, not even a flicker of familiarity. She swallowed. Thank you. They shook hands, a brief, formal gesture, but their fingers lingered half a second too long. A tremor passed between them. Rachel grinned. "Dad's going to be your supervisor too. Told you he was secretly rooting for you." Michael looked at her. "Actually, you'll both report to Miss Alcott for now, just to keep things balanced." Anna blinked. That wasn't in the letter, so he was creating space, or pretending to. Either way, it complicated everything less and more. Throughout the week, Anna tried to focus. She sat through meetings, drafted briefs, reviewed contracts. She kept her head down, her voice steady, her eyes forward. But Michael was everywhere, passing by in the hallway, standing at the other end of the boardroom table, speaking in low tones on client calls, watching her sometimes, just a flicker of attention, too careful to be casual. And then one night, when she stayed late to finish a proposal, her phone buzzed. "Michael, 6th floor, conference room B, 10 minutes, just to talk." Her hands froze over the keyboard. Her pulse roared in her ears. 10 minutes later, she pushed open the glass door to find him waiting, alone. The skyline glowed behind him, casting his silhouette in gold and grey. He didn't move when she stepped inside. "I shouldn't have invited you here," he said. She closed the door. "But you did." He nodded slowly. "I thought I could keep this separate. Professional." Anna took a breath. "And can you?" He looked at her for a long moment. Then softly, honestly, "No." Neither spoke. The air between them said it all. She stepped closer, close enough to see the quiet war in his eyes, close enough to know hers matched it. But they didn't touch. Not yet. Not this time, because the decision had already been made, and the price of pretending had only just begun. The office of Bennett, Strauss & Cole was carved from steel and silence, polished glass panels, dark wood floors that echoed with authority, conversations in low tones. Everything about the place whispered restraint, and yet tension always finds a crack. Anna sat at the long conference table in one of the smaller meeting rooms on the 9th floor. Her laptop glowed softly. Legal briefs, case strategies, and notes filled the space in front of her. She was focused, or at least pretending to be. Across the table sat Michael, impeccably dressed in a slate-grey suit, sleeves rolled slightly at the wrists, pen in hand. His expression was composed, his gaze sharp, controlled, too controlled. They were working late on a high-stakes case involving corporate fraud. Rachel had left hours ago, and most of the building was empty, save for a few associates 2 floors down. The city glittered beyond the window, but inside, the air felt stifling. Anna reviewed a clause in silence, feeling the weight of his presence like static against her skin. "You missed something," he said calmly, not looking up. She raised her eyes, eyebrows narrowing. "No, I didn't." Michael gestured toward a paragraph. "You didn't anticipate their counterclaim based on Section 8. They'll use it to stall." Anna leaned forward. "Then we'll tighten the language. It's not a flaw. It's adaptable." His gaze finally lifted to hers. Adaptable doesn't win courtrooms, precision does. Her jaw tightened. "Then maybe you should have written it yourself." The words hung in the air, too sharp, too honest. Michael sat back, exhaling slowly. "You're not here because of me, Anna. You're here because you're good. Don't forget that." She stood up, pacing. "I don't forget it, you do." He followed her with his eyes, his expression unreadable. "What exactly are we doing?" she asked suddenly, spinning around to face him. "We sit in meetings, pretend nothing happened, and then spend every second trying not to look at each other. Is that the plan?" Michael stood too, the tension in his body visible now. "You want honesty? Fine. I think about you every minute I'm in this room. I watch your hands when you write, your mouth when you argue. I walk past your office and have to stop myself from stepping inside." Anna's breath caught. "You think I don't feel the same?" she asked, voice low. "You think I don't lose sleep every night trying to act like I'm not—" He was in front of her in 2 strides, close, too close. "Say it," he murmured. She didn't. She couldn't. So instead, she kissed him. It wasn't gentle. It wasn't careful. It was need, pure and volatile. Their bodies collided as his hands gripped her waist and pulled her against him. Her fingers curled into his shirt, anchoring herself to something that no longer felt avoidable. The kiss deepened. Months of tension crashed into that single moment, urgent, dangerous, undeniable. He pressed her back against the door of the meeting room, and for a second, all she could hear was breath and heat and the pounding of her own pulse. When they finally broke apart, they were both breathing hard. Anna touched her lips, still dazed. Michael stepped back slowly, hands falling away. "This can't keep happening," he said, but it sounded more like a warning to himself than to her. She leaned her head against the door behind her. "Then stop." His eyes darkened. "You know I can't." Neither of them spoke. The silence now was different, broken, charged, irreversible. "We crossed the line," Anna said, voice barely audible. Michael's jaw clenched. "No, we erased it." Anna closed her eyes, torn between the weight of the moment and the impossible clarity it brought. This wasn't just attraction anymore. It wasn't flirtation, tension, or impulse. It was something deeper, something they could no longer pretend to control. A quiet knock on the door startled them both. They sprang apart like guilty teenagers, eyes wide, breath stolen. "Michael?" came a muffled voice, one of the senior partners. "Just wrapping up?" He cleared his throat. "Yes. Almost done." Footsteps retreated down the hall. Anna grabbed her bag and backed away toward the window, trying to calm the storm inside her. Michael ran a hand through his hair and looked at her. "We need to talk. Really talk. But not here." She nodded, clutching the strap of her bag. "I know." He took a step forward. "Tonight?" She hesitated, then shook her head. "I can't. Not like this. I need time." Michael didn't argue. He simply looked at her like she was the only thing in the room that mattered. "I'll wait." Anna gave a bitter smile. "Will you?" He opened the door for her, just like he always did. But this time, as she passed through it, the space between them no longer felt charged with potential. It felt dangerous, real. She walked down the hall, heels clicking softly against the marble, head high. But every step felt heavier than the last, because the battle between reason and desire was already lost. The gala had ended, but the night was far from over. Bennett, Strauss & Cole's annual event had taken place at one of Manhattan's most prestigious hotels, a towering glass cathedral near Central Park, all golden lighting, crystal chandeliers, and the echo of violin strings under murmurs of power and money. Anna had worn a black silk dress, simple, elegant, backless. She hadn't meant to stand out. But when Michael saw her at the entrance, his breath had caught. She didn't know that, of course. Not until hours later. Not until he quietly took her hand just as she was about to call a cab, leaned close to her ear and whispered, "Come with me." No hesitation, no words. Only her nod, quiet and sure, as if she'd been waiting to say yes all her life. The elevator ride to the penthouse was silent, not because there was nothing to say, but because everything had already been said in glances, in restraint, in the storm they'd both been holding back for far too long. The suite at the top was wrapped in moonlight. Floor-to-ceiling windows revealed the glittering sprawl of New York below. The space was warm and dim, the silence inside louder than the city they'd left behind. Michael closed the door behind them. Anna stood still. He didn't rush to her. He watched her, carefully, reverently, as if memorizing the shape of the moment before it was broken. And then he stepped forward, slowly, deliberately. His hands framed her face as he leaned in, brushing her lips with his in a kiss so soft it ached. It wasn't rushed this time, it was sacred. Their mouths moved with patience, discovery, the kind of kiss that asked permission and promised presence. When he finally pulled back, his voice was hoarse. "If you don't want this, say it now." Anna looked at him, her heart pounding against her ribs. "I've never been more certain." That was all. No more waiting. He kissed her again, deeper this time, and she melted into him, fingers sliding into his hair as the heat between them bloomed into something uncontrollable. He lifted her gently, carrying her past the glass table, past the velvet couch, to the king-sized bed where everything slowed down. Michael took his time. He undressed her like she was fragile glass, like every inch of her skin deserved worship. His hands traced her shoulders, her spine, her hips, not with urgency, but with awe. Anna closed her eyes, letting herself be touched, not as something desired, but as someone seen. When he kissed the inside of her wrist, she trembled. When he whispered her name between breaths, she forgot the city, the firm, the world outside that door. It wasn't just physical. It wasn't about possession, it was about recognition. Their bodies moved together in rhythm, building slowly, breaking open, finding home in one another. Michael was gentle and rough, silent and breathless, a man unraveling the edges of his own rules. Anna responded with abandon, soft moans against his neck, fingers gripping the sheets, the sound of his name spilling from her mouth like a secret finally released. When it was over, they didn't speak. They lay tangled in white sheets, chest to chest, the room lit only by the glow of the skyline and the shadows it cast across the walls. Michael stroked her hair, his hand slow and steady. His eyes were open, watching her, unreadable, but not cold. Anna rested her head on his chest, feeling the rise and fall of his breath. She wasn't afraid, she wasn't ashamed. For the first time, she felt claimed, not in a way that took her freedom, but in a way that gave her belonging. His fingers moved to her jaw. He traced the edge of her cheekbone with his thumb, then leaned in to kiss her forehead, soft, solemn, as if sealing something. "Tell me I didn't imagine this," he said finally, his voice no louder than a confession. Anna looked up at him. "You didn't." His hand slid down to her waist, grounding her. "I should feel guilty," he whispered. "You don't?" "I feel undone," she exhaled slowly. "So do I." They lay there, minutes ticking by like decades, no labels, no definitions, just the undeniable truth of what had happened, what had become irreversible. When she finally sat up, wrapped in the sheet, Michael followed her movements with quiet eyes. "I don't know what this means," she said. "Neither do I. But it means something," she added. He nodded. "More than either of us planned." She glanced toward the window. The city pulsed like a distant heartbeat. Inside, the room remained suspended in stillness. "We can't go back now," Anna whispered. Michael stood, walked to where she sat at the edge of the bed, and knelt before her. He took her hand. "No," he said. "We can't." He pressed her fingers to his lips. It wasn't a promise. It wasn't a plan. But it was the beginning of something neither of them could ignore. The morning after changed everything, by not changing anything at all. They returned to the office like ghosts. No glances, no words, no signs of the night they had just lived, a night that had stripped them bare and left something sacred trembling between them. Michael arrived early, Anna later, both silent, both swallowed by the cold corridors and pristine glass walls of the firm. It was as if nothing had happened, but everything had. Anna sat at her desk, fingers poised above her keyboard, unable to type. Her body was still sore in places where his hands had held her too tightly. Her lips still felt the echo of his. And yet, the space between them now felt wider than ever. He didn't call, didn't text, didn't even acknowledge her when they passed in the hallway. She told herself it was necessary, safe, professional, but it felt like abandonment. Rachel burst into her office mid-morning, full of energy and iced coffee. "You're avoiding me," she accused playfully, dropping into a chair. "I'm just busy," Anna lied. Rachel tilted her head. "You look like you haven't slept." "I haven't," Rachel frowned. "Is it work? My dad being intense again?" Anna swallowed hard. "Something like that." Rachel stood, walking to the window. "He's been weird lately too, you know. Distant, closed off, like he's here but not really." She turned to face Anna. "You didn't fight with him, did you?" The question hit harder than it should have. "No," Anna said too quickly. "Of course not." Rachel's eyes narrowed, but she nodded slowly. "Okay. I just feel like something shifted. I can't explain it." Anna looked away, her guilt tightening like a vice, because something had shifted, and there was no way back. Meanwhile, Michael buried himself in work. He shut his door, cancelled meetings, barked instructions through emails instead of speaking to anyone directly. But the truth, he was spiraling. Every time he closed his eyes, He saw her. Anna, wrapped in a sheet, hair loose over her shoulder, skin glowing in the moonlight. Her breathless whisper, "You didn't imagine this." He replayed it on loop, equal parts torture and salvation. He hated himself for wanting more. He hated himself more for pretending he didn't. At night, he walked the city. Long stretches of pavement with no destination. He passed restaurants, bars, hotels, all reminders of what could have been, what should never be. Back at home, his reflection in the mirror looked older, hollow, and still, he said nothing. Anna, on the other hand, was unraveling in silence. The pressure to perform, to act normal, to stay composed, it became unbearable. She smiled during meetings, spoke up in briefings, even joked with Rachel over lunch. But inside she felt like she was drowning with a smile on her face. She didn't know what Michael wanted. She didn't know what she wanted, only that pretending nothing had happened hurt more than the risk of facing it. One night, she stayed late at the office. Everyone else had gone. The city beyond the windows buzzed with life, but inside the building, the silence was deafening. She stood outside Michael's office for a full minute. Hand raised, fist closed. She didn't knock. She walked away. Inside, Michael had been sitting in the dark. He had heard her footsteps, felt her hesitation through the door, but like her, he stayed still. Cowardice in twin silence. The next day, Rachel appeared again, this time with sharper eyes. "You've been off," she said. "Like, not just tired, distant, secretive." Anna kept her eyes on the document in front of her. "I'm fine." "No, you're not," Rachel said, voice low now. "And neither is he." Anna looked up. "What do you mean?" Rachel leaned in. "He talks less, smiles less, and when he sees you, he looks like he's trying not to breathe." Anna's heart stopped. Rachel shook her head. "I don't know what's going on, Anna, but if you're in trouble, or if he's hurting you somehow, please tell me." The concern in Rachel's voice almost broke her. "He's not," Anna said quietly. "It's not like that." Rachel searched her face for a long time, then nodded slowly. "Okay, I'll let it go for now, but if there's something you need to tell me, I'm here." When Rachel left, Anna broke. She locked the office door, sat down, buried her face in her hands. Tears came fast, hot, silent. Not because of guilt, but because she missed him, missed his voice, his presence, the way she felt when he looked at her like she was the only thing in the world that made sense. And now, she felt like a secret, a complication, a regret. That night, Michael opened a draft email 6 times, typed one line, deleted it, typed again, "I miss you," then deleted it again. Instead, he sent nothing, and in the space between them, filled with silence, hesitation, and everything they were afraid to say, something began to die. Not love, but trust, because the price of their secret wasn't just distance. It was the slow erosion of the truth between them. The rooftop lounge of the Lexington Grand Hotel shimmered with soft light and artificial smiles. It was the firm's quarterly mixer, an event crafted to impress clients and polish reputations. Waiters passed with silver trays. Laughter spilled from corners like spilled wine. Everyone played their part, everyone but Anna. She stood near the glass railing, the skyline blazing behind her like a cage made of stars. In her hands, a flute of untouched champagne trembled slightly. Her eyes scanned the crowd, not for people but for escape, because he was there. Michael. Across the room, near the bar, surrounded by partners, he wore black, always black. And even from a distance she could feel him, his gaze, his silence, the weight of everything unspoken between them. Since that night, they had become shadows, avoiding, hiding, pretending. But there was only so much pretense the heart could take. She turned and headed for the elevator, weaving through the crowd with purpose. She almost made it. Anna, his voice, low, strained, caught her in the hallway before the elevators. She froze, closed her eyes, exhaled. He stepped closer. "Don't walk away." She turned to him slowly, eyes already wet. "I've been walking away every day, Michael, From you, from me, from everything we are. He looked tired, beautiful and tired. Then stop. She shook her head. I can't do this. Not in boardrooms, not in silence. I feel like I'm breaking apart piece by piece every time you look at me like I'm a stranger. You think this is easy for me? He snapped, voice rising. Do you think I enjoy pretending I don't see you? That I don't want to touch you every second I'm near you? Tears spilled now. She didn't try to stop them. I don't want to be your secret anymore, she said. I don't want to be the thing you hide behind your closed door and your silence. He stepped forward, voice cracking. You were never a secret to me. You were the only truth I've known in years. Anna's breath hitched. Then why do you act like I'm a mistake? Because I'm scared, he whispered. Scared of what this means, of what it could cost you, cost us. Her voice trembled. It's already costing me everything. Michael's fists clenched at his sides. I'm not perfect, Anna. I don't know how to do this. I've spent my life in control, and then you came along and ruined that. Good, she said, stepping closer. I hope I ruined it, because you ruined me too. He stared at her, something breaking behind his eyes. Say it, she blinked. Say what? What you feel. Stop hiding. Her voice broke. I love you, Michael. It was out before she could stop it. The air changed. He took 2 steps forward and grabbed her face in both hands, his lips crashing into hers like a storm long held back. The kiss was wild, unforgiving, desperate. Not soft or tender, but raw, real. Her hands clutched his jacket, fingers curling into the fabric as if anchoring herself to him, to this moment, to everything they'd tried to deny. His mouth moved over hers with fury and grief and longing. Years of loneliness, weeks of silence, 1,000 moments stolen in glances and now finally poured into touch. When they broke apart, both were breathless. I love you, he said against her forehead. God, I love you, and I'm sorry. For the silence, for hiding, for everything. She leaned into him, tears still falling. Don't let go. Never again. They stood there in the hallway, her mascara smudged, his tie askew, 2 people coming undone at last, but around them the world still moved. Laughter echoed down the corridor. The elevator dinged. They pulled apart just slightly, both aware of where they were, of what came next, of what they couldn't escape. Anna wiped her cheeks with the back of her hand. We can't go back in there. Michael nodded. Then we don't. Where do we go? She whispered. He looked at her, really looked, and for the first time in weeks his voice was sure. Wherever you'll let me follow. Cape Cod in late summer was all light and salt and stillness. The wind whispered over dunes and driftwood, and the air smelled of ocean and wild roses. It was the kind of place where time seemed to stretch and soften, where silence no longer meant avoidance, but peace. Anna sat across from Michael at a private table near the water. The sun was melting into the sea, throwing streaks of gold and lavender across the sky. Candles flickered between them, untouched wine glinting in their glasses. She wore a light linen dress, barefoot in the sand. He had left his blazer on the back of his chair, his sleeves rolled, the top buttons undone. There was no tension now, just quiet anticipation. I've been thinking, Michael said, his voice calm but certain. Anna smiled over the rim of her glass. That sounds dangerous. He leaned in slightly. Dangerous has never felt this right. Her breath caught even as she tried to play it cool. What are you thinking about? He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, smooth shell. Not a ring, not yet, but something deeply intentional. He placed it gently on the table between them. I want to be with you, not in secret, not in stolen moments, but fully, openly. I want to wake up and not wonder if I'll have to pretend not to want you. Anna's lips parted, but no words came. Michael continued, eyes locked on hers. I know the timing is complicated. I know the world might judge. But I don't care anymore. Not when I know what this is. He paused. I'm not asking for forever. Not yet. I'm asking for now. For honesty. For us. Anna reached for the shell slowly, closing her fingers around it like a promise. You're asking me to be yours, she whispered. He nodded. Officially. Unapologetically. She stared at him for a long second. eyes shining in the fading light. "I already am," she said. His relief was visible, softening his entire posture. "Then let's stop hiding." She exhaled, a shaky, joyful breath. "Let's." They toasted silently, glasses clinking like a vow. The sun dipped below the horizon, and the waves rolled in gentle applause. Later that night, they walked barefoot along the shore, hand in hand, the silence between them filled with ease. For the first time in weeks, Anna didn't feel like she had to brace herself. There were no secrets left between them. Not now. But there was one more truth to face. Rachel. Back in the city, Anna rehearsed the conversation a dozen times. None of it felt right. Nothing seemed gentle enough or honest enough. But when she finally sat down across from Rachel in a quiet cafe 2 days later, the words came like a tide. "There's something I need to tell you," she began. Rachel tilted her head, sipping her coffee. "You're leaving the firm?" Anna blinked. "What? No, nothing like that." "Then what is it?" Anna took a breath. "It's about your dad. Michael and I—" Rachel raised her hand, stopping her. "Anna, please." Anna froze. "What?" Rachel smiled. "I've known." Silence. "You— What?" Rachel laughed softly. "Come on, I'm not blind. You think I didn't see the way he looked at you? Or the way you flinched when I mentioned him? I've seen it since Maine. I was just waiting for you to say it." Anna's voice was a whisper. "You're not mad?" "Mad?" Rachel shook her head. "I'm relieved. I was worried you'd spend the rest of your life pretending you didn't feel something that real. And him? God, he's been a ghost since Mom left. But with you," she smiled, genuine and warm, "he's alive again." Tears stung Anna's eyes, but this time they weren't from guilt or fear. "You're really okay with it?" she asked. Rachel reached across the table and took her hand. "You make him better. He makes you stronger. I see it. And I've always wanted a sister." Anna laughed through her tears. "You're unbelievable," Rachel shrugged. "Takes one to love one." That night, Anna told Michael everything. He stood in the doorway of her apartment, stunned. "She knew." "She knew," Anna said, pulling him inside. "And she's with us." Michael sat down heavily, shoulders dropping as if years had fallen away. "I thought I was going to lose her," he said. Anna cupped his face in both hands. "You gained something instead." He kissed her then, slow, grateful, the kind of kiss that said we made it. Over the next few weeks, everything shifted. They stopped hiding. Michael walked into the office with Anna by his side, not holding hands, not putting on a show, but no longer pretending. People talked, some whispered, others nodded in approval, but neither of them cared anymore. At home, they found rhythm, not perfect but honest. He learned how she liked her coffee. She learned how he liked silence. They met each other in the middle of their wounds, every day. Rachel visited often, her presence never awkward, only playful. "This is weird," she said once, watching them cook together, "but also kind of perfect." And it was. Imperfect, unconventional, but real. And now, it belonged to the world. Autumn arrived quietly in New York. The golden leaves piled along Park Avenue, swirling at the feet of hurried strangers who didn't stop to look up. The sky, now pale and wide, stretched above the city like a promise waiting to be written. Inside the sleek glass building of Bennett, Strauss & Cole, Anna moved with quiet confidence. Her heels clicked with purpose, her tailored suit sharp, her eyes clear. Colleagues nodded respectfully as she passed. Her reputation had solidified, brilliant, poised, unstoppable. But the truest part of her strength didn't come from law books or courtrooms. It came from the man waiting for her in the corner office. Michael. Months had passed since they stopped hiding, since the night in Cape Cod when he chose her in the open, since the day Rachel smiled and gave them both her blessing, wrapped in wit and warmth. What began as forbidden was now simply theirs. No spectacle, no apologies, just a quiet, unwavering presence that grounded them both. In the office, they were impeccable, distant when needed, professional always. Michael was harder on her than anyone else, but she understood why. She welcomed it. It made her better, sharper. He pushed her not to protect her, but to respect her. Outside the office, everything softened. Evenings were slow dinners in dimly lit restaurants. Weekend mornings were spent tangled in blankets and laughter. She knew the sound of his breathing in the early hours, the way he watched the news in silence, the way his hands traced the outline of her hip while he pretended to read a book. He knew how she hummed while brushing her teeth, how she needed stillness after a long day, how fiercely she loved even when she didn't say it aloud. They didn't need grand gestures. Their intimacy lived in details, in silence that spoke, in presence that healed. Anna often found herself watching him when he wasn't looking, studying the man once wrapped in walls. Now, he was different, still powerful, still composed, but there was a gentleness now, a lightness she hadn't seen before. He had once led empires. Now he led with his heart even when it scared him. And she had once feared the weight of loving someone like him. Now she wore that love like armor. They didn't speak often about the past, the tension, the hiding, the ache of silence, but sometimes in quiet moments it surfaced. "Do you regret how it started?" Anna asked him once as they sat on the balcony, watching the city lights blink awake. Michael turned to her, eyes serious. "I regret the fear, but not the fire." She reached for his hand. "Neither do I." Rachel remained in their lives like the heartbeat of something whole. She stopped by unannounced, sent memes in group chats, mocked their overly coordinated schedules. But mostly she was just there, solid, loving, entirely at peace with their new family dynamic. "You two are weird," she told them once. "But, like, the kind of weird that works." Michael raised an eyebrow. "Is that your blessing or a threat?" Rachel grinned. Little bit of both. The world, of course, had its opinions. Some whispered, some stared. There were headlines, brief, curious, judgmental. But Anna and Michael walked through it all, hand in hand. Because when you've already faced yourself in silence, the world's noise doesn't matter as much. Anna no longer questioned if she belonged. She didn't wonder if she was too young, too untraditional, too something. She knew who she was. And in Michael, she didn't just find a lover. She found a partner, a mirror. A man who didn't just see her potential but expected her to live it. And he, in turn, found in her not redemption, but permission to begin again. They made space for each other's fears. They listened more than they spoke. And when things got hard, and they did, they stayed. Because that's what love looked like now. Not perfect, but patient, present, real. One night in early December, they walked through Central Park beneath bare branches, the city humming around them in early holiday anticipation. Anna slipped her gloved hand into his. "Do you ever think about how none of this was supposed to happen?" Michael looked at her, lips twitching into a quiet smile. "No. I think it was always going to happen. We just took the long way." She leaned into him. The long way was worth it. He kissed the top of her head, snow beginning to fall in slow, tentative flakes, and for once, neither of them had to run. Not from themselves, not from each other, not from the world, because when love is true, unshaken by time, unafraid of eyes, it becomes something else entirely. It becomes home. What began in silence, surrounded by fear and invisible boundaries, transformed into a mature love, strong enough to exist in the light of day. Anna and Michael didn't just challenge the world, they challenged themselves. They faced judgments, insecurities, and everything that seemed impossible. But when love is true, it finds a way. It doesn't matter the distance, or the time, or what others think. Because in the end, true love is having the courage not to hide. And perhaps deep down, this story speaks to us too. If this story touched you, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and tell us in the comments, where are you listening from? Your support is what allows us to continue sharing stories that speak directly to the heart.